Hola, vamos a comenzar el recorrido de prensa. Les presento a Carla Niño, la curadora de la exposición, y a Wyatt Kahn. Bienvenidos.
Gracias. Bueno, voy a hacer una breve explicación o introducción porque Wyatt habla muy bien de sus obras. Hace unos años, tal vez en general, porque también hay... Pero espérame, si quieres solo por Javi se acercó con nosotros porque creía que el trabajo de Wyatt era muy pertinente para el Anahuacalli. Él creía que tenía que ver sobre la visión y el futuro y la construcción y la relación con la arquitectura. Sin embargo, creo que lo que vimos en estos últimos meses, el trabajo de Wyatt tiene más que ver o puede tener un diálogo con la superposición de capas y la construcción del propio Anahuacalli, de la figura de Diego Rivera. Para mí me parecía que Diego Rivera si lo revisamos, es un ser incongruente o contradictorio en muchos sentidos, que en algún momento tuvo relaciones muy intensas hacia el funcionalismo, hacia el rechazo a lo internacional, a lo europeo, pero también transitó por ahí, también tuvo que estar en París y también tuvo que regresar a México. Y para rechazar la arquitectura neocolonial empezó a decantarse hacia las posturas radicales que venían con la Bauhaus y Le Corbusier, y luego él mismo aceptó una casa, la casa estudio, y después esa casa tampoco ya le fue suficiente y termina el Anahuacalli como siendo esta postura contundente sobre lo que debe ser la arquitectura mexicana. Sin embargo, creo que para construir esa idea de lo que es el Anahuacalli tuvo que tener como todos estos traslapes. Entonces, para mí la exposición de Wyatt hace referencia a cómo Diego Rivera construía su vida, cómo se construyó el Anahuacalli, cómo construía los murales, que tenía mucho que ver para mí, que se lo dije mucho a Wyatt, con la teoría de montaje de Einstein, de ir sobreponiendo formas, no una toma junto a la otra, no son tomas independientes que no están una junto a la otra, sino una tapa la otra y medio deja ver otra. Y entonces creo que lo de Wyatt tiene que ver más como cómo se construye la experiencia humana, como a veces también esas líneas del pasado o esas capas vuelven y regresan, o más bien regresan y a veces son decisiones que tomamos en el pasado, a veces son espectros, a veces es gente que en ocasiones vienen a cuestionarnos por decisiones que tomamos antes y ya no somos esas personas. Entonces, para mí la obra de Wyatt tiene mucho que ver con eso, con construcción del ser humano, pero también del Anahuacalli.
A while ago, Javi approached to us and he told us that Wyatt's work was very concerned on topics of architecture, topics of art, and that's something we are always working with on the museum, because Diego had this amazing mind on architecture. He was on Europe, he was very close to the Bauhaus, he was close to the Le Corbusier, but that architecture was not enough for him. So once that he had this modern house here in Mexico, also the house was not enough, and that idea of changing all the time eventually became in the construction of this museum of the Anahuacalli. So Diego was always working with layers of art, layers of architecture, layers of concepts, and that is the same thing that from our point of view Wyatt Kahn's work is doing with the museum. So that was very important to us, and that's why we are hosting here the pieces now.
Bueno, creo que vamos a entrar y vamos a ir viendo las piezas y platicando. Wyatt, ¿quieres decir mucho eso?
No, I think I talked to a few of you while we were having coffee, but I've been here many times before I knew I had the show here, and I know that every artist I know who's either done a show here or who wants to do a show here, like, it's just one of the most incredible spiritual places to have your work, and to have your work in direct collaboration with some of the most incredible artifacts in our history, as well as some of the most incredible sketches for mural of Diego Rivera, is a huge, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And you all are here for the first moments to share it with me, and that's amazing. Congratulations.
It's fun to meet you. Yeah. You're also very close with Charlie. Yeah, not I don't Charlie. Yeah, it's very fun.
When I started, my first works I ever kind of showed about the intention for use flat, multi-channel, kind of geometric abstract paintings, but they took, they are really kind of figurative in their heart. I would see someone in the street in a certain movement and would draw it and draw it and draw it until it became a fully abstract painting. And what's also kind of unique about this body of work is that I was staining it. I was staining it with rabbit skin glue and rust. And at that time, I really liked the idea of certain artwork, certain things that had kind of been forgotten about, to bring them, that had been maybe in the closet for 30, 40 years, that were brought out, and kind of their history kind of it affected them and made them kind of what they are now. And so for this work, for example, you can kind of see a spine, and you can see maybe some rib cages along the side, maybe a foot on one side that's going like that. But it's cool to see because I've had it for a very long time and I've never shown it.
Él menciona que la pieza está pensada como, bueno, es una de sus piezas más antiguas. La idea parte también de la exposición es traer de vuelta cosas que han estado guardadas en el closet por ya varios años. Y esta pieza en particular está inspirada en un dibujo que él hizo viendo a alguien en movimiento en la calle. Justo él piensa esta pieza como es una deconstrucción de ese mismo dibujo. Él vio a una persona con el pie inclinado, de hecho se puede ver el pie de aquel lado, se pueden ver algunas costillas. Justo al centro de esta línea que atraviesa puede ser la columna vertebral, etc. Pues vaya, justo siendo una de sus obras más antiguas, está aquí para decir que vaya, la exposición está pensada de esta forma, como cosas que van a empezar a salir del closet y que vaya, forman parte de su transitar como artista.
Y también el Anahuacalli es un ejemplo de cómo Diego transitó de lo plano, de lo bidimensional a lo tridimensional. Para él era importante vivir en la obra de arte. Entonces esta es la máxima de Diego, porque entras a las fauces de la tierra, a la cueva, y viene desde lo gráfico y va haciendo como una evolución en el que pasa por mosaico, por bajorrelieve, altorrelieve, pintura y llega a la arquitectura. Y justo que creo que el trabajo de Wyatt nos recuerda que el mismo museo está emergiendo, ¿no? El museo no se queda conforme, el museo está retando a la institución de cómo se enseña una pieza, y las piezas aquí no son documento histórico, son una pieza estética. Entonces el mismo museo, si lo ven, empieza a desarrollar estas ramas, o empieza a brotarle, le empiezan a salir piezas, repisas, altares. Esta parte tridimensional de Diego Rivera creo que tiene todo el reflejo. Bueno, la obra de Wyatt es un dispositivo que nos ayuda a ver el museo y revisar que el museo no se queda nunca plano, y aún así le sigue como siendo insuficiente la tridimensionalidad, le falta todavía crecer más.
The museum is always talking about this changing of the work of Diego Rivera from 2 dimensions to 3 dimensions. And also we think that Wyatt's work fits perfectly here because it reminds us that the art that we are trying to show is not just about 2 dimensions. You can see that in the museum this kind of branches start growing in the walls, and that's because Diego Rivera was very, very concerned on changing that kind of approach to art. It's the same thing as Wyatt, because it reminds us that the pieces here are not just pieces to see as historical documents, but as pieces of art. Such as the Anahuacalli itself, the archaeological pieces, and Wyatt's work.
And, I mean, similar, my work always, but even dating back, is very interested in the idea of like the physical space also creating the compositional space. Because the space between the panels is actually the composition, but it's also real depth and has errors and flaws that are more than just kind of drawn on top of a piece of paper. And so this building is similar in the way that the physical object of the building is also like the container and the shelves and everything like that. And so it interacts in a different way, but in kind of a similar conceptual method.
Claro. Vaya, justo la idea de que las piezas estén acá es porque el museo mismo está aportando una especie de contenedor con las condiciones necesarias para que las piezas en sus dimensiones empiecen a desarrollarse acá.
And one more thing about this painting is that Diego, when you go upstairs into the mural room, you'll see that Diego used a lot of perspective lines. Mm-hmm. And in this part, I'm also very interested in kind of perspective lines and how you break it and kind of have multiple points of perspective in a single work, but how they then break each other to create, which Diego was also doing in the sketches for the murals upstairs.
Una cosa interesante es que bueno, cuando subamos vamos a ver uno de los murales de Diego que está justo marcado por estas líneas de perspectiva que atraviesan toda la pintura. Y también eso intenta recordar, este trabajo intenta recordar aquellas líneas que vaya, están aportando un nuevo tipo de composición porque las mismas líneas son parte de la obra, no son solo una forma que está escondida.
Actually, they were first started to be conceived in 2015. So I was making these walls along the same side, along the same time, and I was interested in the idea of taking some of the forms that I had made, both representationally and abstract, and combining them in kind of a storyboard to create a narrative. And so there's a hand, there's a clock, there's two phones, and they all kind of have a certain meaning for me. The hand is, you know, the hand of the maker, the artist. You know, the clock is kind of time. You know, the kind of constant artistic obsession with kind of lack of time, time running out, like, you know, legacy. And the phone is kind of like maybe the future calling you, or some kind of inspiration calling you. And so kind of simple meanings, but meanings that can really be applied to a lot of different ways. And so that was why I wanted to include this work. And
de este trabajo, lo que me gusta muchísimo, lo van a ver desde arriba. Muchas de las esculturas de la plaza se tienen que ver desde la terraza. Van a ver esta mano creadora que están mencionando, el reloj. Pero para mí era importante esta escultura aquí adentro porque justo es un reflejo de esta idea medio neoplatónica de Diego Rivera de construir un templo, pero los templos es como as above, so below, como un templo para arriba, para abajo. Tiene esta parte mística, masónica del museo también. Entonces el interior y el exterior, la comunicación, en los techos más arriba van a ver como hay más color en los mosaicos, porque Juan Oberman de alguna manera tritura el atardecer y lo trae al interior. Entonces para mí es muy lindo tener esta parte escultórica en la plaza, pero también las referencias un poco más planas al interior. Y esta pieza, cuando la pusimos Wyatt y yo, como que nos pareció que era idea. No lo teníamos tan claro, pero si se fijan tiene como el mismo movimiento del oroboro del techo, de la serpiente. Entonces las piezas en el Anahuacalli a veces uno puede decidir o puede hacer como un plan, sin embargo el museo va absorbiendo o va decidiendo si algo se ve bien o escupe algo, y creo que esta pieza como que aceptó su lugar.
This piece was very important for us to fit it here because we think that it shows some of the concepts and pre-concepts that the museum is built with. Something very interesting is that the pieces from outside can be seen also from the terrace in the top of the museum, and that shows exactly not just what we can see from the pieces in their level, but also from the top. Something that is very interesting is that the museum is always changing in colors. You will see the ceilings upstairs will change in their colors, in their shapes, because Juan O'Gorman took the concept of Diego to the next level, adding colors, adding shapes. You can see here, for example, we were not absolutely certain about it, but eventually we were, that some of the shapes upstairs actually fit with the Ouroboros of the ceiling. So the museum is always creating this amazing dialogue between contemporary art and the creations of Juan and Diego. And here, for example, we can see that it perfectly fit in this space.
This is the body of work that I think is very important. Very randomly, I had a stressful moment on the subway, and like thinking about how I need so many body parts to get everything I need to have done, and how stressed I was, and how anxious I was, and I just tried to draw a person with a bunch of hands and feet, and the person ended up being square with eyes, and that's kind of how it came about. But I do feel like they're really connected to my practice in a way because, like I said before, the works all start with figures, and these also are figures, and they're a different way of making figurative sculptural painting. But here, I really liked how we were able to place them throughout the museum in strange places, in funny places. To act as ghosts, things that like haunt me, and how they allow me to activate the idea that sometimes my own practice is haunting me, and my own work is haunting me, as well as my current life with my anxiety. And so you'll see them in the next room and upstairs, very high up, and this museum was just kind of perfect to install them for many reasons.
It looks amazing.
What's this material?
It's just canvas. I made the stretcher, the kind of panel, and I put holes in it, and then I stretched the canvas around it, and I sewed and stuffed the hands and feet myself, and attached them. And you'll see one thing about these is you'll see the hands are quite demented or quite kind of straight. I mean, they're well made, but they're not made perfectly, and that's a big part of my work in general. I'm not a good woodworker. I'm not good at making panels. I'm not good at stretching things. Like, there's flaws, and I believe that that's part of the work and us as human, that we all kind of, our flaws are kind of what can really make us beautiful and what connects us. And so I always leave those, and I try to do my best, but I'm just never going to be a good sewer, with the machine. I'm going to swear and be upset when I'm kind of assembling them, and the same with the kind of when I'm cutting wood. And so I think those things really make it more beautiful than if they were perfect.
The first one is marble.
Which one? Out there? No, that's canvas that's been stained.
Oh, okay.
So it was stained with rabbit skin glue, which is a classic material for painting. But the way I used the rabbit skin glue was wrong, and so it was very mixed poorly, and so that creates the stain.
Sorry, they look like little guards.
Yeah.
Little guards like gives you good energy.
I'm gonna circle that.
time I spent living here for a few months in 2019 and 2020. And one of the things I felt that was different in Mexico City than in New York is the way the architectural spaces and the urban landscape are layered. In New York, it's kind of just demolished and covered what was there before, but in Mexico City, it's kind of built on top of, and that could be like the wires on the street or the additions to buildings or the whole environment. And I found it quite beautiful and chaotic and interesting. And when I got back to New York and we were in the pandemic, I was thinking a lot about how I feel like I have all this stuff that is kind of stuck to me and covered on me. And I wanted to make a body of work that depicted that. And so I went back to some of my drawings and photographs during my time in Mexico, and I liked how that layering and how that history stays with the city, and it just kind of continues to move on, and it doesn't feel like something that's been stuck on, but really an integration. And that's how I felt during that moment. And so I made these two paintings with those kind of ideas in mind. And I took some inspiration from, this painting is called Acrobat, which also the sculpture behind the camera is also called Acrobat, so we thought it was placed with kind of fun interaction. But it was loosely based on the Picasso paintings of acrobats and the colors and how that kind of, how I could take that. And this is called Standing Bathing, which is loosely based on kind of in the shower, the idea of kind of those moments during pandemic.
You can also do like a reference to, the organization
Sure.
Oh, done. Oh, that looks